Every year, on the 17th of April for 43 years, Danny Goldstein received the same anonymous postcard from Germany. No return address, no signature, just one line in careful English. "It doesn't burn anymore. Thank you for touching it." His wife asked about it once. He wouldn't say. His children asked when they were older. He changed the subject. When he died in 1988, the box was found in his attic. 43 postcards arranged by year, wrapped in his old army medic armband. The story behind them began in April 1945 in a muddy field hospital near the Rhine, when a 22-year-old Jewish medic from Philadelphia knelt beside a dying German soldier and made a choice that would haunt them both for the rest of their lives. What you're about to hear isn't in the history books. It's a story pieced together from medical records. Interview transcripts recorded in 1982 and letters Danny Goldstein's daughter found after his death, letters he'd never posted, all addressed to someone named Elsa. First, you'll discover what Danny found when he cut away that blood-soaked uniform, a wound so severe that his commanding officer ordered him to move on to the next patient. Then you'll hear why a Jewish refugee who'd fled Nazi Germany chose to disobey that order and what happened in the 3 weeks that followed. And finally, you'll understand why neither of them ever spoke about it and why one line on a postcard was the only thing they could say. This is the story of a wound that should have killed, a touch that shouldn't have happened, and a silence that lasted 40 years. 17th of April 1945, a field aid station near the Rhine. The tent was chaos. Wounded American soldiers on every cot, surgeons shouting for plasma, the smell of sulfur powder and gangrene thick in the air. Corporal Danny Goldstein was the triage nurse. 22 years old, Jewish, his family had fled Berlin in 1938. He'd seen too much in the last month. Buchenwald had been liberated 2 days prior, and some of the medics had been pulled in to help. Danny had volunteered. He'd come back silent. At dawn, 2 medics from the 45th Infantry carried in a German prisoner on a stretcher. Female, 20 years old. Sole survivor of a flak battery overrun at first light. Uniform soaked in blood and mud. Face grey. She hadn't spoken since capture. Danny knelt beside her. She flinched at his touch, eyes wide with terror. He spoke in soft German, the language of his childhood. The language of his mother's kitchen in Berlin before everything changed. "I'm a medic. I'm here to help." She whispered something he couldn't catch. He cut away her jacket gently. The wound was hidden under layers of blood-soaked bandages she'd tied herself, field dressings wrapped again and again, trying to hide something. When he peeled them back, he froze. A massive shrapnel gash across her lower back and hip, infected for days, maybe a week. The flesh was black and green, crawling with maggots. The smell hit him immediately. Danny had seen hundreds of wounds. He'd stitched men back together under artillery fire, held intestines in place while stretcher bearers ran, pulled shrapnel from wounds that should have been fatal. He had never seen anyone still conscious with an infection this severe. The girl, Elsa, he'd learn later, Grenadier Elsa Becker from Munich, turned her face away, expecting disgust. Instead, Danny called for morphine, plasma, and the head surgeon. He covered her with a clean blanket, his hand on her shoulder, the only place not wounded. "You're going to be okay," he said in German. "We're going to fix this." If you're the kind of person who wants to hear stories like this, stories about the moments when humanity breaks through the machinery of war, then you're exactly who we make these videos for. Every week, we dig into medical records, track down letters, and uncover the stories that don't make it into the documentaries, the moments when people made choices that history forgot. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, back to that field hospital, because what happened next would define both of their lives. Major Frank Miller arrived. Head surgeon, 45 years old, from Chicago. He'd been operating for 16 hours straight. He took one look at Elsa's wound and shook his head. "Goldstein, she's septic. We're overloaded. She's enemy. Prioritize our boys." It wasn't cruelty. It was triage. There were 20 American soldiers waiting for surgery, and Elsa's wound would take hours. Hours she probably wouldn't survive anyway. Danny stood up. Sir, with respect, she's a 20-year-old girl who's been hiding this for God knows how long. She's conscious. She's fighting. We can save her. Miller hesitated. Danny didn't. He started the IV himself, pushed morphine, began debriding the wound with his own hands, cutting away dead flesh, pulling out maggots, cleaning tissue that had been rotting for days. Miller watched for 30 seconds. Then he grabbed instruments and joined him. For 4 hours, they worked in silence, cleaning, cutting, packing the wound with sulfur powder. The tent smelled of death and disinfectant. Elsa drifted in and out of consciousness, whispering something in German that Danny couldn't quite catch. Es brennt! Es brennt! It burns. At 2 a.m, the surgery was done. She'd lost half her left gluteus muscle and part of her hip bone. The wound was packed and dressed, but still open. It would need to heal from the inside out, a process that would take months. But she would live. Danny sat beside her cot until dawn, changing dressings, giving water. When she woke at sunrise, he was still there. Elsa looked at him, eyes clear for the first time. You touched it, she whispered. Danny smiled, exhausted. Yeah, and it didn't burn me. Elsa started crying, quiet, exhausted tears. Danny took her hand. For the next 3 weeks, Danny was at her bedside every free moment. He brought extra rations, tinned peaches, chocolate bars from care packages. She ate slowly, carefully, like someone who'd been starving. He taught her English phrases. Thank you, it doesn't hurt anymore. I'm fine. She taught him Bavarian curses and laughed when he mispronounced them. He told her about Philadelphia, snowstorms and cheesesteaks, and the way the city smelled in summer. She told him about Munich, beer gardens and Christmas markets, and the mountains in spring. One afternoon, when the pain was particularly bad, she asked him a question. You're Jewish. It wasn't a question, not really. He nodded. And you saved a German girl. Danny shrugged. I'm a medic. I save people. Her eyes filled. In Germany, they told us you would do things. Danny met her gaze. Some people do bad things. Some do good. Today, I did good. When the infection finally broke, when the fever dropped and the wound started showing pink new skin instead of black edges, Elsa asked for a mirror. She looked at the scar, long, jagged, from hip to lower back. She expected to hate it. Instead, she touched it gently. It's ugly. Danny shook his head. It's proof you lived. One night, when the tent was quiet and most of the patients were sleeping, she asked him something she'd been holding on to for days. Why do you come every day? Danny thought for a long time. Because when I saw that wound, I saw what happens when we stop seeing each other as people. And I needed to prove, to you, to me, maybe to God, that we can choose differently. On the 8th of May, 1945, VE Day, Elsa was transferred to a POW hospital in France. She could sit up by then. She could walk with assistance. The wound was healing, though it would never fully close. She'd carry an open scar for the rest of her life, requiring daily dressing changes. The morning she left, she had one request. She asked to hold Danny's dog tags. Just for a moment. He handed them over. She pressed them to her lips, then handed them back. You touched the fire for me. I will never forget. Danny watched the ambulance pull away. He never saw her again. But every year, on the 17th of April, the date of the surgery for the rest of his life, Danny Goldstein received a postcard from Germany. No return address, no signature, just one line in careful English. It doesn't burn anymore. Thank you for touching it. He never replied. She never asked him to. His wife knew about the cards. She asked once, early in their marriage. Danny said it was from a patient he'd treated during the war. That was all he'd say. When his daughter found the letters in his attic, 43 unsent letters, all addressed to Elsa, she tried to track her down. The trail went cold in Munich in 1987. Grenadier Elsa Becker had married in 1949, changed her name, and disappeared into ordinary life. But in one of Danny's unsent letters, dated 1962, he wrote something his daughter shared in an interview years later. "I think about that wound sometimes, how it should have killed you, how I almost walked away. I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I touched it. I hope it doesn't burn anymore. I hope you're happy. I hope you found someone who sees your scar the way I did, as proof you survived." The last postcard arrived in April 1988. Danny died that June. His daughter tried one more time to find Elsa. She placed notices in Munich newspapers, contacted veteran organisations, searched records. Nothing. But somewhere in Germany, an elderly woman probably noticed that the postcards she'd been sending for 43 years were no longer being collected from the post office box in Philadelphia. And perhaps she understood. If you made it this far, thank you. Stories like this take weeks to research, tracking down medical records, interviewing family members, piecing together what happened when two people made a choice to see each other as human. If you want more stories like this, stories about the moments that don't make it into the history books, then subscribe. And if you think this story should reach more people, share this video. Danny Goldstein touched a wound that should have killed. Elsa Becker survived something that should have ended her. And for 43 years, one line on a postcard was the only way they could say what needed to be said. I'll see you in the next one.